Hello there, everyone. How are you doing today? Patricia Hayes here with your Coffee Time Career Chat. Super excited to be here again with you today on Networking Wednesday. Yes. And we are finishing off our series on networking and gratitude and how you can show appreciation for your connections, for your professional relationships in a significant and meaningful way, right? So we've been talking about this for the last month or so. So this is the end of that series. And today in particular, we're talking about showing up for your people. And I love this because it seems somewhat repetitive, but it's actually just kind of bringing together so many of the concepts and strategies we've already been talking about to make it clear so that you don't have any questions about like, how do I do that again or why? It's most of the time we either have really no clue, okay, fair, or we have some idea, but we don't know how it fits into the grand scheme of things. And so this is a way of helping you to identify what those things may be, how things that you were taking for granted or didn't think really much, of really do help and support you in supporting your network, helping you to nurture them, helping you to say thank you, and how that can be mutually beneficial in the long term. So what does showing up look like? Right? Because people it's like, oh, well, I got to go do X, Y, and Z. It may or may not be something big. It doesn't have to be. When I'm talking about showing up for your network, I'm thinking of it in three specific ways, right? By either supporting them in some endeavor that they're having, by inviting them to something that you have access to, or simply by sharing. All right. So let's look at that supporting piece. If you're supporting them, that it can be as simple as accepting an invitation to a luncheon, right? So this is something that happened to me very recently. And we get that. We just don't think anything of it. It's like, oh, my schedule. But how about thinking of it in terms of showing your appreciation for them by saying yes and making yourself available, right? So I did that a few weeks ago. I got a short notice invite to a luncheon that I had seen, but decided I wasn't going to go. But because someone I knew was the speaker and I didn't realize that before, when that person reached out to say, hey, will you come to this luncheon and sit at my table? I was like, well, absolutely. Right. It was a no-brainer for me. That support shows appreciation for your relationship, for your connection. So a little emergency announcement there. And then another way, for example, is where someone I've been speaking with and was scheduled to speak at an event that they were hosting, and that got postponed. But then they were like following my work, and I was talking about my networking, of course, on Networking Wednesdays. And they were like, oh my gosh, why didn't I think of this before? And said, hey, can you come speak to my students? Right. They're having some issues talking about how they can build those relationships, how they can engage in networking. These are college students. And I was like, absolutely. Right. Because it was a need. It was something you thought of. And he was like, I have this class and I know it's short notice. Like, not a problem. I was available. It's with college students who I love working with. And it was with a contact and a connection, a colleague that I respect, and I know it's always extending me opportunities. So absolutely, I'm available. Let's go do this, okay? Showing support can look like so many things, right? And they start mingling together. But I want you to be more conscientious of not just looking at those opportunities that come where someone asks you to do something or to be somewhere with them, not just as like, oh, how can this help me? But in terms of how you're showing up supports them, right? Does it give them some access to some more people, right? So maybe your influence brings something to the table just by being present. Does it bring, like, maybe they just need some good friends and colleagues and people they know around them as they move forward with doing something, right? I want you to think of it more in terms of, again, not how it's benefiting you, but how it's showing support and how you can be saying thank you and showing appreciation for that relationship by being there for them. Okay. The second one, inviting people. And this is the one that most people think of, where you're like, oh, I invited this person, they didn't show up. Oh, sometimes it's just about the invitation. Because if they have a conflict, right, it may not work out. Everything doesn't work out. However, it does show that you were thinking of them. This is someone I value. This is someone I really want to maintain the relationship with. I appreciate the relationship we have. Hey, can you come to this thing, right? So this looks a lot like when you have an extra invitation to something, you get an extra seat. I know for me in the last few months, it looked like I had received an invitation to an event as a result of my networking Wednesday activities. I was like super excited about it. It was a women's event. And then as we got closer to the actual event, then the person who invited me said, hey, we actually have more room. So if you know of someone, let me know and I will add their name to the list. You want to talk about paying it forward, right? So my friend and colleague trusted me enough to invite the right person to come along to this event, on very short notice. And so I did. I invited another colleague of mine. I thought about, I'm like, who do I know that this would be work great for based on their business, based on what they're trying to do? I was like, got it. And sure enough, the person I invited, like it was a good fit, right? The context of the conversations, the people who were there, all of that, it was a good fit. So think about what your invitations can do for someone and saying, and you saying thank you for who you are. Hey, come along with me to this thing. Okay. And what power and how influential that can be. All right. So consider that. The third one that I want to say is on sharing. This really and truly is the simplest and sometimes the most effective strategy for showing up for your people. Because a lot of times you don't even have to leave your house. You don't have to get in a car. You don't have to attend an event. Like there's no excuse for it. Because sharing information and opportunities can be done any day of the week. All right. Whether it's information that you have that could be beneficial to them in their career, in their business, whether it's an opportunity that comes across your table that doesn't fit for you, but it fits for them. Or even if it does fit for you, it's like, hey, you know what? I might not get it, but maybe they will. Okay. This is that kind of selfless. Remember when I say it's not just about the taking, it's about giving and receiving and making sure that opportunities are open for others, because everything that comes to you is not for you. Y'all know that's one of my sayings. Everything that comes to you is not for you. So be willing to share the wealth. Okay. So that sharing piece is so easy, but it's the thing that people fall down on so often because they're not doing it strategically and consistently, right? So let's talk about being strategic and consistent. So let's say you have something that comes to you and you're like, this is a great opportunity. Who should I send it to? The strategy part of that is going through that mindset, going through that process of actually saying, okay, let's see, there's 3 people I could send this to. Now, the easy way out is just to send it to all 3. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're really going to be strategic about it, it may be that maybe one of them could be helped by it, but maybe not. Maybe there's 2 that the first 2 are really the ones who really need to be in that room, who need to, get access to that grant, whatever it might be. So by you forwarding that and putting some thought to it, that's being more strategic to help your person, to help your connection, your relationship get a stronger footing, for consideration or whatever it might be. All right. So that's where a little bit of how the strategy, not because you're trying to choose something. Now, granted, if there is an opportunity that you've been asked to share and someone says, hey, we really want you to share the number of people, or, we really respect your influence, that's when that really does step up, right? Because you want to make sure that you're not being willy-nilly in who you are extending an opportunity to, because you want to make sure that they represent you well, okay, and influence and in response to the request that was made. So there's different things that come up along the way, but I want you to remember to be strategic in your sharing, because sometimes it matters. Sometimes it may not. It may just be like, oh, this is a great article. Hey, here's an event that, and you can share it with, 10, 15 people. It's like, hey, here's a networking event that's coming up, people, FYI, go check it out, right? Also, consistency matters. When you're consistent, and it's not even about being consistent with a particular person, right? That's a different conversation when we're talking about supporting people in our network. One of those things I talked about in our other series when we're harvesting relationships and things like that. But I'm talking about being consistent from your perspective of making sure that you are engaging in sharing of opportunities and information on a regular basis, so that you're not being haphazard, right? So if I've learned something and I'm like, oh yeah, this is great, and you send something out once a quarter, well, if that's really going to be your level of input, okay, fine. But if during the rest of those 3 months you're having things come across your email, your inbox, or whatever, and you're not actively resharing or saying, who can I help in this process, then there's a problem there, right? You're not really showing good appreciation to your network. And as a result, you are not growing those relationships. Okay. So that feedback doesn't come back. Like that pipeline starts to dry up. And you're like, what happened? Well, if you're not making your people important and showing consistent effort to be there on their behalf, then how are people going to show up for you? Right? So that's what I want you to think about when you're sharing information. Is the focus is on being strategic and consistent with your efforts, and being aware, right? Making sure you have a continuous awareness, because there's so many things that we blow off along the way. But I'm that person, right? I see something and I'm like, I wonder who that might fit. And I may, mull on it a little bit, and then like, boom, I got it, and send it over to someone, right? There are a few things that come across my desk that I can't find someone to share it with. Very few things. But I do know that at least I might make the effort. And that is worth thinking about as well. Taking that regular reflection time of who can you help along the way feeds in to that thing of people including you in that, hey, because I'm telling you, it has always amazed me how folks I may not have talked to you in 3, 6, 9, 12 months will all of a sudden send me something like, hey, Patricia, this came across my desk and I thought about you. Hope all is well with you. Let me know how it goes. I'm like, okay, absolutely. Okay. So I encourage you to do that. So when you're talking about what it looks like, showing up, what it looks like supporting people. It looks like inviting them and engaging them. It looks like sharing on their behalf. Okay. When to do it? I just talked about it all the time. Be aware and be consistent. Because what happens when you're continuing to feed the flow and feed the momentum, even with people you may not have been the one to share something with, it comes back. Because remember, people talk to each other, right? And they'll be like, oh, hey, I had a great conversation with Patricia the other day. And they were like, oh, well, I haven't talked to her in a while. And they were like, yeah, she did this. She sent me this thing, whatever. Guess what? That comes back. That puts you on someone else's mind. You may not even know it. those are the best ones. Those are the best ones. So when do you make sure you show up for people? All the time, by being aware and being consistent. I'm not talking about violating boundaries. Anyone knows I'm like really solid on resetting boundaries professionally and personally right now. This is a big thing in my space. So I'm not talking about that. But within the boundaries you set and within the values and the core values that you are expressing when it comes to building your career and your business right now, making sure that you're taking aligned action and all of those things to make sure you're also feeding your professional relationships accordingly. Okay? That's it. That's what we got. And I am so glad that you have joined with me today on today's Coffee Time Career Chat as we end this series on showing gratitude to your network and making sure you show up for your people. I wish all of my folks here in the U.S. a happy Thanksgiving. Have a safe and blessed week. And for the rest of you guys, have a great week and check in. Let me know how you're doing as we are on that downhill slide towards the end of the year. Great things coming your way. Keep an eye out for an end of the year bundle that's going to be putting out there to help some of you who have been hedging about making an investment in yourself. Here's going to be an opportunity to do so in a way that can be impactful and affordable. Okay? Take care, everyone. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.